Mookie Betts didn't say it loudly. He said it quietly, almost to himself, in the corridor just outside the Dodgers clubhouse. Freddie Freeman was standing a few feet away. Neither of them looked at each other. They just stared straight ahead. "We've never seen anything like this before." That sentence didn't need an explanation. It didn't need a follow-up question. Everyone in that hallway understood exactly what it meant. Because in the span of 72 hours, the Los Angeles Dodgers had experienced something that no single team should have to process at once. Shohei Ohtani was back on the mound. Roki Sasaki was out of the rotation. 2 relief pitchers were gone. Not traded. Not placed on the injured list. Permanently banned. And somewhere in the middle of all of that, a baseball team still had to show up, still had to play, still had to win. There is a version of this story where Ohtani's return to pitching is the only story. Where it fills every headline, every press conference, every sports radio segment for a week. Where it is treated with the reverence it deserves. But that is not the version the Dodgers got. They got the complicated version. The version where the joy of his return existed at the exact same moment as everything else falling apart around it. And that tension, that strange collision of triumph and chaos, is what made this week unlike anything this franchise has seen in a very long time. When Ohtani walked to the mound in Pittsburgh, the crowd was not what it would have been in Los Angeles. PNC Park is not Dodger Stadium. The backdrop was different. The electricity was different. But none of that mattered to him. He stood at the top of the mound, looked in at the catcher, and for a moment, time slowed down. The Pirates lineup didn't know exactly what version of Ohtani they were going to get. Nobody did. That was the honest truth. A pitcher returning from an extended absence, regardless of how gifted, carries uncertainty with him to the mound. The arm remembers. But the game doesn't wait for memories. His first pitch was a fastball. 98.2 miles per hour. The batter didn't move. Strike 1. That number traveled through the Dodgers' dugout faster than the pitch itself. 98.2. Not a cautious opener. Not a feeling-out pitch. A statement. The kind of first pitch that tells everyone watching exactly where his mind is. He wasn't easing back in. He was back. By the second inning, it was clear that the Pirates had not been given an easy night. Ohtani's sweeper was moving the way it moves when everything is working, sharp and late and almost cruel in how it breaks. Batters were leaning one way and the ball was going another. His fastball was sitting at 97, touching 98. His command was not perfect, but it was present. And in baseball, presence on the mound means everything. He finished 4 innings. He threw 72 pitches. He allowed 1 run. He struck out 6. When he walked off the mound after the 4th inning, the Dodgers' dugout stood. Every single person. And for a moment, even with everything else that was happening, even with the chaos that had surrounded this team for the past 3 days, there was just that. Just a team recognizing what they had just witnessed. Freddie Freeman was the first one to reach him. He didn't say anything. He just grabbed his arm and held it for a second. That was enough. But the celebration had a shadow over it. It had been there since the announcement came down 2 days before the Pittsburgh series began. Roki Sasaki was being removed from the 6-man rotation. The official language was careful. The Dodgers front office does not panic in public. They use words like workload management and long-term development and organizational decision. They speak in calm, measured tones even when the decision is anything but calm. But the baseball world does not speak in official language. And the baseball world understood exactly what this meant. Sasaki had not been bad. That was what made this so difficult to understand from the outside. He had shown flashes of the pitcher that made every team in baseball chase his signature in the offseason. The stuff was real. The velocity was real. The movement was real. But something was not translating. Something between what he was capable of and what was appearing in games was not connecting the way the Dodgers needed it to connect. And in a season where the margin for error in the National League West is razor thin, the Dodgers decided they could no longer afford to wait for it to click. When the news broke, the reaction in the clubhouse was quiet. Not silent. Quiet. There is a difference. Silence is absence. Quiet is people choosing their words very carefully because they know that whatever they say next will be remembered. A reporter asked Dave Roberts about the decision the morning before the Pittsburgh game. Roberts sat with both hands flat on the table in front of him. He didn't move them the entire time he was answering. This isn't about Roki's talent. Nobody in this building has any question about his talent. This is about giving him the best environment to develop into the pitcher we know he can be. He paused. Sometimes the best thing you can do for a young pitcher is take the pressure off. The room didn't push back immediately. But the question was already forming in the air before anyone said it out loud. Taking Roki Sasaki out of a major league rotation and moving him to a different role is not taking pressure off. It is a different kind of pressure. A quieter kind. The kind that sits with a pitcher in the bullpen between appearances, asking questions that don't have easy answers. How Sasaki responds to this moment will say more about him than anything he has thrown from a major league mound. That was the honest assessment. And in the Dodgers organization, they seemed to believe the answer would eventually be a good one. But eventually is a complicated word in a pennant race. And then there were the other two names. Not moved down. Not reassigned. Not placed on any list that carries the possibility of return. Permanently banned. When that language appeared in the official announcements, there was a moment where people read it twice. Then a third time. Because in modern baseball, permanent bans are rare enough that seeing the words in connection with a team in the middle of a playoff race feels surreal. It feels like something from a different era of the sport. The details of what led to the bans are still being processed publicly. But the effect on the Dodgers bullpen is not abstract. It is immediate. It is real. Two arms that were part of a relief structure that had carried this team through close games, through tight innings, through the exact moments when starting pitching hands the ball to someone else and trusts them, those two arms are gone. Permanently. In the Dodgers bullpen, the remaining pitchers had to look at that reality and decide how to carry it. There is no manual for this. There is no organizational meeting that fully prepares a bullpen for losing two of its own to something this permanent and this serious. A veteran reliever, speaking near his locker after the Pittsburgh game ended, kept his words short. His voice was even. But his eyes were doing something different from his voice. You just keep throwing. That's all you can do. You keep throwing. That sentence carried more weight than its 7 words suggested. When Mookie Betts said, "We've never seen anything like this before," he was not talking about one thing. That is the part that gets lost when a quote travels across the internet in a headline. The words get separated from the moment they were born in. They get simplified. They get made into a reaction to a single event. But Betts was standing in a hallway after a week that contained Ohtani's return, Sasaki's removal, and 2 permanent bans. He was processing all of it at once. And what he was saying, in the most honest way a person can say something without saying too much, was that the weight of this week was unlike anything he had experienced as a Dodger. Freeman nodded when Betts said it. He didn't add to it. He didn't need to. These are 2 players who have been in big moments. Betts has a World Series ring. Freeman has a World Series ring. They have played in October games where the stadium shakes and the noise becomes physical and the pressure of the moment sits on top of everything you try to do. And yet, this week felt different to them. Not louder. Different. Because October pressure is a pressure you can prepare for. You can study it. You can visualize it. You can put yourself in that moment 1,000 times in your mind before it arrives. Nobody prepares for a week like this one. The Dodgers left Pittsburgh with a complicated feeling. Not quite a win feeling. Not quite a loss feeling. Something in between that doesn't have a clean name. Ohtani had returned. That was real, and it was beautiful, and it was the kind of moment that reminds you why baseball can still feel like something more than a sport on the right night. But Sasaki was no longer in the rotation. And two pitchers were gone in a way that doesn't allow for the comfort of hoping they return. Dave Roberts walked out of PNC Park with the expression of a manager who had already begun running the calculations for the next series. The present moment was still in his eyes. But behind it, the next problem was already forming. A reporter caught him just outside the exit and asked one final question. How does this team move forward from a week like this? Roberts stopped walking. He turned. He thought for a moment longer than he usually does before answering. The same way we always do. We show up. We prepare. We play. He paused one more time. And we trust Shohei. The reporter didn't ask a follow-up. There wasn't one needed. Because in Los Angeles, in this season, in this moment, that answer contains more than it appears to on the surface. Trusting Shohei is not just a baseball decision. It is not just a rotation strategy or a lineup construction choice. It is the thing this team holds onto when everything else becomes uncertain. And right now, with the rotation fractured and the bullpen reshaped and the week still settling into memory, uncertain is exactly what this feels like. Ohtani threw 72 pitches in Pittsburgh. He struck out 6. He allowed 1 run. He walked off the mound and his teammates stood for him. And for those 4 innings, none of the rest of it existed. Just him. Just the mound. Just the game. That, at least, remained exactly as it has always been.